Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Snarf number 15, the very last issue of this great anthology comic. I'm kind of bummed that this is over because I've had a really good time rediscovering this comic the past 2 weeks. And, like most anthologies, there's some turds in the punch bowl every now and then. But for the most part, Snarf has just a lot of great stuff in it. And this issue is no exception. We start off with a Mark Landman cover, one of his, computer-generated drawings. Like I've said before, not a huge fan. I think what he does with computer-generated art is pretty interesting. It's a lot better than, Digital Justice, the Batman comic, or Shatter. But I'd still rather see non-computer-generated art. We have an editorial from Dave Schreiner and, talking about all the contributors. This is interesting. Look, we see the cover of Snarf 16, next issue. And he says, well, we've been experiencing some bad numbers. So this issue will be out, but we don't know exactly when. Unfortunately, it was never, and it never came out. But it sounds like they have the whole lineup. They tell us all the artists inside. They have the cover. So I wonder if this exists. All the stats for this are ready to go in some closet somewhere, some warehouse, because I would love to see it. We start off with two newcomers to Snarf. This is How Sweet It Is. Stories and pencils by David Apubacha, and inks by the great Canadian cartoonist Bernie Mireault. Well, Bacha's Canadian as well. And you can totally tell it's Bernie Mireault inks by these crazy swirly backgrounds. It's very odd. And this story is just like a little anecdote. This is actually, that's Bacha there, and there's Mireault. And they're just talking about bananas and how Bernie Mireault, if he even accidentally bites into the brown spot of a banana, he'll vomit. It really grosses him out. So Bacha tells him a weird story about his dad, how there was this banana that, little David was almost doing a scientific experiment, just seeing how nasty it could get. And the father ate it, and he loved it. He's like, yeah, the blacker they are, the sweeter they are. And Bernie Mireault just hurls. Yeah, is repulsed. Not much of a story, but nice to see this art. It kind of ends up just looking like Bernie Mireault art, but it's definitely different. I mean, this Bacha guy's definitely different. His pencils are different, but pretty nice to see. This is great. Richard Sala with another Mad Doctor. And the only contribution to Snarf that Sala ever did. And this is a typical great early Sala strip. Talking about this, this Mad Doctor doing all his typical Mad Doctor things. I have created artificial men who do my bidding. I have reduced my rivals to doll-like proportions. And I've hypnotized young women. But then it has this kind of sad ending where he's like, yeah, but their boyfriends always interfere and crush my plans. So it's almost like, oh, poor Mad Doctor. He never gets his way. Just great early Sala. Just typical. I mean, all of his strips back then were just great. I was so glad to see this. We get more of the French cartoonist Édika. This one's called Chamdou. And it's about this guy Chamdou. He's at the employment office. He's a dental surgeon. And this thing is just like, as you can see, it's like a Monty Python sketch. It's all just dialogue. Just this guy talking to this amazingly dense, kind of insane clerk at the employment office. And the dialogue is just rapid fire. Like almost every line is a joke. I love this cartooning. Just everyone's so repulsive and weird looking and bizarre. They're almost alien looking. And then things get weirder and weirder. He can't explain to her what a dental surgeon is. She doesn't seem to get it. She keeps saying, so what do you do for a living? And so he tries to show her. He says, here, I'll put this balloon in my mouth. Here's a bicycle pump. Blow it up. And she overinflates it. His head explodes. He has all these bandages on his face. He's like, okay, we'll try something else. Here's a tennis ball. And then I love this, the next scene, she's thinking, strange, his bandages are gone. So he shoves the tennis ball in his mouth, wraps a thing around his head to pretend to be, a dental patient. It's just so ludicrous. It just keeps building and building. It becomes more and more absurd. And then things take a turn for the even weirder. He asks her, all of a sudden he says, "Can I look at your breasts?" And she says, "Go ahead." Of course, why not? And then she says, "Can I look at your knees? Can I look at your esophagus?" And just the way he draws this stuff is really funny. There's all this really crazy exaggeration. "Can I look at your armpits?" It's just so nuts. And then it even becomes like surreal where he's like, "Can I look at your pussy?" And she has a pussy cat in her hands. She says, "Can I look at your pylon?" And he actually has a pylon from a dock here. And then they jump into bed together. Apparently at this employment office, there's just a bed behind the desk. And they have great sex. And of course, at the end, she says, "And one last thing, can I ask you what your job is?" Wah, wah, wah. This is translated by Randy and Jean-Marc L'Officier, the guys who have translated like most of Mobius and stuff, a lot of French stuff. And it is amazing that this is so funny and it's translated. So I imagine there's a lot of humor that can't translate as well. So maybe in the original French, this is even funnier. And I don't know. I also like for some reason that he signs it at the bottom. He just writes, "Goodbye, asshole." So now we have another night at Scotty's. And in the editorial, Dave Schreiner mentioned that Wayne Honath has legally changed his name to Wayno. So this is when he became Wayno, and that's when he became more of a known cartoonist. It's interesting, as soon as he becomes Wayno, his art looks like Wayno. The last strips we saw when he was Wayne Honath, he has this totally different, cruder style. And as Wayno, he has more of this kind of cartoony style, way more appealing than that Wayne Honath style. So it's interesting. Maybe he had this, art development, a leap in his art skills, or he figured out his style and he said, "Okay, I got to change my name now to reflect that." This is a really silly strip. Just these three guys. One guy says, "I got to go take a dump." And then it's just them saying every euphemism for pooping. Like, "You mean pinching a loaf? You mean fertilizing the mushrooms?" And of course, they illustrate each one. He's actually pinching a loaf, laying some cable. We see the cable. So it's pretty dumb. But I imagine if I was 14, I would love this strip. I do like the drawing. It's a fun cartooning. I've always liked Wayno's stuff. It just has a very daffy spirit to it. Oh, but I don't love it as much as this shit. So we're continuing Gerard Jablonski's strips about, sorry about that, got distracted. His strips about Farmer Ned and his various farm animals. This one's called Dumbbell. And he's talking about this cow who was the dumbest of any cow he ever had. I love this how the cow somehow ends up on the roof and he's just crying. That's how dumb he is, or she is. He invites her to stay in his home. He feels so sorry for her. One night, Dumbbell knocks over a lantern in the barn and starts a fire. But before the flames could spread, Dumbbell alerted all the other animals to danger and got them to safety. At this point, Farmer Ned realized that Dumbbell wasn't such a dumbbell after all. That's the end of my story. Now get off my property. I love this stuff. This is another new comer to Snarf. Kelly Strom, who I believe is from Ireland. I'm not going to check. This is called The Burning Bush and the Wooden Heart. Very strange little strip. We see the smaller tree and a bigger tree. The smaller tree is professing its love to the bigger tree. The bigger tree is basically just saying, "Hey, that's really sweet of you, but there can never be anything between us. We're just too different." And the smaller plant continues to profess its love, very flowery and romantic. Meanwhile, we see this cute little cartoony penguin walking through this wood with an axe. And we see him, he's chopped down a tree. And now he comes back and he chops down the big tree. Apparently these trees can only sense each other because they have no eyes. And so the little tree is just like, why aren't you answering me? Don't I mean anything to you? And then we see the little guy comes back and he chops down the little tree. There's so much we could share together and life is so short, he says. I really like Kelly Strom's art. I know I've seen Kelly Strom before, but I can't remember where. But this is some phenomenally beautiful drawing going on here. Some of this inking almost looks like Tony Millionaire or something. Just really great line work. Here's a Mark Landman one-pager. Oh, this is way too computery for me. This is just kind of hard to look at. This is kind of gross. It's not very funny at all either. I'm not even going to comment more about it. Here's Clown Syndrome. Once again, P.C. Vey with his Wapo the Clown. This one's even just stranger than the other ones. I don't really even understand it. So Wapo's at the mall doing his act, and all of a sudden his mind goes kablooey, and he starts like almost like spouting non sequiturs, and they call for a doctor. So I can't remember his name right now, guys. The hand puppet. He's got a name. He's describing the symptoms to the doctor, and the doctor says, "To my office." And he gives him an injection of something. I like these pictures of him like going through this like mind fuck, some kind of chemical experience. And it looks like Wayno, it worked. Wayno feels fine. And then he goes outside, and for some reason now his puppet is wigging out. And he says this thing, "I used to be the creator, and now I'm just a repairman." And the doctor laughs. I don't understand it at all. I read it a couple times, and I'm still just like, I don't get it. This is, next we have Steve Stiles. Just doing a little, I think it's a real anecdote from his life where he was walking his dog one day and this weirdo in a car just says, "I can beat that dog." So Steve Stiles just thought he'd be like, I don't know, go with it and be zany with the guy. He was like, "Oh, I prefer beating on cats. There's nothing like the thrill of bashing a cat against the wall, you know, with his tail in your fist." And the guy just says, "I can beat that dog." He didn't even like get it. Kind of interesting, and kind of nice cartoony art. We have another Father Ned story here by Jablonski, The Story of Pig Iron. So this is a pig he had who was just a great pig. He could do all the chores around the farm. He had a heart as big as the universe and a brain about the size of a lima bean. He asked for him to, he's like, "Get me a beer, will you?" And he brings him a can, but he's like, "This isn't beer, this is motor oil, you dumbbell." And so every night, the 11:39 train, Pig Iron loved to like wait for the train to come and then run across the tracks, just to be he was a thrill seeker. And look at that great picture of him. He looks pretty serious. So Farmer Ned keeps telling him to stop doing it. And eventually he's like, "I got to put an end to this." So he locks him up in the barn at night. And so but after a while, he decided that Pig Iron deserved a night in the town. So he took him to a drive-in movie. In the middle of the movie, Pig Iron leaped out the window and headed towards the train tracks. And he, for the last time, he risked crossing the tracks in front of the train. And we see his death. And out of something bad, something good has come. Now there's one less mouth to feed. And he's eating poor Pig Iron at a barbecue grill. Oh, I love it. So we get 4 more pages of Joe Matt diary comics. This one's about how to amuse yourself in church when you're a little kid, because that's so freaking boring. I grew up Catholic, and the masses are like an hour and a half, and oh God, it's torture. You're just sitting there and listening to guys talking Latin half the time, and it is interesting that he says the one part he likes is that part where the priest says, Let us now offer each other a sign of peace. And everyone turns to their neighbor and shakes their hands. I always liked that. I was like, yeah, this is good. This is a good thing. That everyone's just kind of, most people don't even talk to each other, but everyone's shaking each other's hands. And I always liked that part of church, but that was about it. Next, we have Home on the Range. And this is about Joe Matt's first job when he worked at this kind of fast food, Western-themed restaurant. And all the managers were hard asses, just, typical fast food type managers. But then this new manager, he was, I think he was like Russian or something. And he was a lot more fun and laissez-faire. He would like steal food from the restaurant himself and let Joe take food. And he would like flirt with all the girls, even have sex with them in his car in the parking lot. But Joe Matt actually got a crush on some girl, a new worker there named Robin. They actually started like becoming an item. They'd make out in his car. And Joe was all like, you better keep your hands off of her, because this guy was a Lothario. But eventually the girlfriend dumps him. And that's the end of that job. Blueberry Fields Forever is about Joe Matt getting a job managing a blueberry farm with his friend. And this is a really good character piece about his buddy, Ron. It's just a character. And it's pretty interesting, just living in this blueberry farm in this little shack. And they had to organize all these Cambodian workers. But they basically just lived in a hovel. And this guy, they were just drinking beer all the time. Kind of an interesting little autobiography story. And another job comic is the Fat Jack's Comic Crypt, which is a famous old comic store in Philadelphia. Joe Matt worked there, and he just tells us about all the weirdos that worked there. It sounds pretty interesting, but it's also like a typical comic store, like the guy in The Simpsons, It's that kind of store where no girls were ever in there. A lot of the guys were kind of questionable, especially with their personal hygiene. Pretty fun stuff. Especially because I remember going in those stores a lot when I was younger. Here's another Mark Landman strip. I don't know, what can I say? This one's about work too. And then we have two more of these trading cards. Supposedly you're supposed to fold these and turn into a trading card. And they should have been committed. And these are by Eric Nesham. I don't really get these little cards. These people aren't that weird. They describe these people, who I don't even know if they're real or he made them up. But they're just not that interesting. Just kind of nameless, faceless people. She's just describing their boring lives. They don't seem that weird. Or that interestingly weird. So I don't know. I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the World's Worst Comics Awards video we did about maybe 7 months ago. And this is the ballot for it. I guess they actually had people write in who's the worst supporting character, the worst superpower. I never participated in that. I just read the comic. So there you go, guys. Snarf number 15, The End of an Era. It ran for 20 years, even though it was very infrequent. Only 15 issues in 20 years, roughly 20 years. But, yeah, we've seen it go from a total classic underground comic to this kind of indie alternative anthology, even though they always still had a few underground guys in every issue. But hope you guys like looking at it with me. And I'm going to miss looking at these. They were really fun. And thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.